Here's the finished product of what it is we're going to be creating. These are going to end up being the 6 components of a 2-pulley system. So the 2 red wheels are known dimension size. These will be the inner wheels of our pulley that the rope will actually rest against. And then these other sets of identically sized bigger wheels will go on the outside. So this small red wheel would be sandwiched between this wheel and its partner here, where each of these 2 black wheels are 10 millimeters bigger than the red wheel, just to give us a little bit of slip protection side to side on our pulley. Same thing down here. This is a 100 millimeter wheel and 2 110 millimeter wheels. All of them, importantly, have the same size center hole, and that's going to allow them all to fit snug on the same size dolly, or dowel, I'm sorry. And so let's look at how we can create this document like this using Adobe Illustrator. So we're going to, in Adobe Illustrator, make a new document, and you can go to File, New, or just click New when you first open Illustrator. The first thing we want to do is call this, let's say, Pulley Discs. And we're going to change this to millimeters. It might have been at pixels, points, inches, or something else. Let's change that to millimeters. Only we need our work to fit within a 10 by 10 inch square. So we can actually type in 10 IN for inches and hit tab. And then down here under height, let's do the same, 10 IN for inches. So that's going to be 254 millimeters by 254 millimeters. We want to make sure we have artboard set to 1. The rest of this should be set exactly as it is by default. CMYK color, high raster effects, and the preview mode set to default. So with that, our document's ready, so we can hit create. And now we've got a square document the size of the piece of wood we're going to cut these from to start working on. And so the first thing we're going to do is lay out our inner wheel for our smaller of the 2 pulleys. So the way we do that is going to grab our ellipse tool, and you might see a rectangle over here. So you're just going to click and hold and click on ellipse. Now when you draw an ellipse, it's going to be truly an ellipse. It's not necessarily fixed in being as wide as it is tall. And so what you want to do is hold shift while you click and drag, and that will force your ellipse to stay a circle. You'll notice that the width and the height are exactly the same. And so what we're going to do is type in a value in millimeters that we want. So the previous example I used 50. Let's say we wanted to have a 60 millimeter small pulley. So I had to type in 60 and hit enter. And you'll see that I now have 60 millimeters for my pulley size. And so if I click on this little black arrow, I should be able to drag this around. It doesn't yet have a hole. That's okay. One thing I want to avoid doing is creating my pulley and then stretching and resizing it, because that would resize the center hole. And like we said before, it's important that these center holes all be the exact same and correct size so that our pulleys fit on our dowel correctly. And so what I might do is take this 60 millimeter pulley and create the 2 pieces that are going to flank it. And so that, rather than 60 millimeters, you want to increase this diameter by about 5 to 10 millimeters. And so I'm going to go with 70 and create 2 of those by hitting Command C, Command V to copy and paste. And so this is sort of the setup I'm going to want for my first pulley and its 2 flanking pieces. So I might highlight them and sort of set them aside for now. Don't worry too much about where things are laid out at this point. You can copy and paste any of these circles because they're all sort of the same for this moment, and then choose my other inner pulley dimension. So maybe for this one I want to go 120 millimeters, so it's double the diameter of my previous. So I might copy that circle, and again from 120, if I add 10, I might want 130 millimeter diameter for my wheel that goes on the outside, and then I would want a second one of those. And so at this point I've got my 6 circles that are going to end up being my pulleys. Now I've made this a little big to fit on the artboard. It looks like it'll just barely, if there's a little bit of overhang beyond 10 by 10 inches, that's fine, nothing super egregious. And so what we don't want is any overlap amongst our parts. We need them to sit without quite touching each other. And so I might start to arrange them around a little bit and thinking about trying to save material. And so here we're pretty close. I know I've got a little bit of overlap. We will deal with that at the end. So the last thing I need to do is pick any of these circles and hit Command C, Command V to copy it and change its diameter to just 8 millimeters. That's the size of the dowel hole that we want to cut. Our dowel is measured actually at 7.8 millimeters, so we're going to cut a slightly bigger hole so that we can just slide the dowel through this without having to like hammer it in. And so what I'm going to do is take that hole and intentionally set it off center of my circle so that it's visually obvious to me that I haven't yet made these concentric. And I'm going to copy and paste that hole and put one per pulley wheel for all 6 of these. I'm going to make sure they're all visibly off center so there's no question around whether or not I've actually made them perfectly concentric yet, so that our pulley can spin in a balanced fashion. And so now we've got these 6 little groupings of 2 circles. What I can do is just click and drag to highlight 2 circles, and then if I click once more on the bigger circle, you'll notice it turns a thicker blue line. That means it's sort of the master shape of these 2. So now when I come over to align and I click this horizontal line center, you'll see this little circle snapped to be along the horizontal center line. And if I choose vertical align center with those 2 options, now I've created concentric circles, and I can right click and say group. And so now this functions as one piece, and that's ready for laser cutting. I'm going to complete the same process on each of these. So highlight, click once on the big circle, align, align, and then come over here and say group. Same thing for this next one. Highlight both, click once on the big circle, align, align, right click and say group. And then I'll just carry that out for the rest of these. Whoops, I accidentally got a couple of extra circles there. And just 2 more to go. A little bit tedious, but not a terrible process with such a small number of pulleys to create. And group. And so now each of these are concentric circles that have been grouped into a single shape. The last thing I want to do is pick my 2 that are actually the important known values, and I'm going to change the color. So this is my 60mm pulley, and next to the stroke word there's a little black rectangle. I'm going to click and just change it to red. And I want to do the same for my 120mm pulley. These are sort of the masters that are going to ride in the center of the other 2. And so I'm going to click red, and now I've got it visually obvious which are my 2 known that I'm going to do my math based on, and then the others are going to flank them on the sides. So the last thing I need to fix is this little bit of overlap in these 3 places. I can do that by saying Object, Artboard, Fit to Artwork Bounds. And so with that done, my artwork or my artboard will resize itself to just perfectly fit all of my work. And I can go ahead and save this document to my desktop or wherever I want under Pulley Disks. Mine's going to ask if I want to overwrite because that was the same name I used for my example. I'll say yes. And this is now ready to be sent to the laser cutter.